All right, everyone, in this video we're going to talk about using the line tool, and we'll probably also talk a little bit about the spline tool. So in the first couple videos we were using mostly squares and circles, and of course sometimes you're going to need a little something different than just a square or circle. You might have to draw your own custom shape. So that's where the line tool comes into play. So line tool is located up in the sketch tab, and I'm going to go ahead and select that. And the way the line tool works is you simply click and release, and you'll see it'll start drawing the line, and then you click and release, and then you click and release, and then click and release. Now the key thing about using a line tool is that you have to create what are called closed loop sketches. What we see on the screen right now is what's called a closed loop sketch. Now an example of an open loop sketch would be something like that. Okay, so this right here is technically not even a shape at the moment. Okay, this is just simply a line. That's it. And probably the most common example of an open loop sketch is where you just kind of miss clicks somewhere. Like, so for example, like right there. Okay, like that's an example of an open loop sketch. You can see there's that little gap right up here. And if you have any little gap, like you see right up here, you're going to get some issues when you go to extrude your shape and make it 3D. And the other good little indicator is that whenever you have a closed loop sketch, the inside of the part is going to turn kind of like a shade of blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off this little gap, and I'm going to turn this into a closed loop sketch just to kind of show you. You'll see the inside of the part has now kind of turned to a shade of blue. So the other thing about the line tool is that there's two ways to draw a line. There is the method of clicking and dragging, and then there's also the method of just simply clicking and releasing. Now, generally I tell people to avoid clicking and dragging because you run a risk of creating open loop sketches, which we do not want. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. So when we talk about clicking and dragging, what I mean is when you start the line, you click and you hold down the mouse button. So right now I am holding down the mouse button as I'm moving the mouse, and when I release the mouse button, it finishes the line. Now this may seem normal, but I'm going to show you where you're going to get some problems. So whenever you click and drag, what I have to do now is I have to go back to where I finished off the previous line, and I have to click and drag again, and then I release. But what happens is sometimes when you go to click and drag, you might accidentally miss this end point where you left off. So I might do something like that, and the problem is I've created another open loop sketch because I was clicking and dragging. And that's clearly an issue. So the other method is where you simply click and release. And the benefit here is that you lower the risk of creating those open loop sketches. Now if I just click and release, so I've simply clicked the mouse button, and I'm not holding down the mouse button right now. You can see it's making the line. Now when I click and release again, you'll see the line is continuous. Okay, I don't have to go back to where I just finished and start a new line. The line that I'm drawing is continuous. And you've probably noticed already there are a lot of little guidelines and things that kind of help you in SolidWorks. You see like these little yellow dotted lines. These can help you in creating a perpendicular shape. Okay, so we can see once you move towards these little dotted lines, it'll kind of stick to them to make it a little bit easier. And the more you draw, you start to get more and more of these little shapes and these little guidelines. Like, for example, this one right here is, if I want to make this line end in the middle of this shape here, that's kind of what that little blue dotted line is for. And the big thing you got to remember with the line tool is make sure you're doing closed loop sketches. So for example, when I'm drawing this shape, I want to make sure that I finish exactly where I started. And once the inside of that shape turns to that shade of blue, then you know that you've created a closed loop sketch. Now, after you've drawn a shape, very common with the line tool, you might have to make a few adjustments. You can drag a lot of these lines and kind of change things around, kind of tweak your shape a little bit. Now, I did say we were going to talk a little bit about the spline tool. The spline tool is a little bit trickier to use. It's, in terms of procedural, it's very similar to the line tool. The only difference is it creates a curved line instead of a straight line. So spline tool, located right up here beside the circle. And quite similar to the line tool, you want to just simply click and release when using this. Now, the thing about the spline tool is the first line is, at first it seems like you're using the line tool because it's creating a straight line. But when you do that second click, what you'll see is it will start to kind of curve a little bit. And then with each click, you can kind of get an idea of how this tool works. It does take a little bit of practice. But just like with the line tool, make sure you're creating a closed loop sketch. So we are finishing wherever we started, and you'll see the inside of it will turn blue. So that's just a little bit on line tool and a little bit more information on the difference between an open loop sketch and a closed loop sketch. So, hope you enjoyed.